Harrisburg District, Captain of the Jackson Enforcement Team, Major of the Central Region, Major of the Southern Region, Lieutenant Colonel of Enforcement, Deputy Director, and now as Director. He has basically done everything you can do, it sounds like, in that organization. He has received numerous accolades, including the MBN Clark Stuckey Award, which was presented for the sustained and superior record of service. There are numerous other awards that he has received. I'm not going to go into all of those. You can read his bio because we want to make sure that he has ample time to present this evening. So I'm just going to say thank you so much, Colonel Maxwell, for joining us, for making this presentation, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to you.
Well, thank you, Teresa, for that very enthusiastic, energetic intro. And, taking into consideration what we're going to be talking about tonight, that's one of the things that we need to float us, to gas us, and to carry us forward, as we deal with the issues associated with COVID-19 and all the other issues that we were dealing with prior to COVID-19 that have persisted. So I have a full appreciation for your spirit of enthusiasm tonight. On behalf of the men and women of the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, I want to say thank you to the Mississippi Nursing Association and Mississippi First Responders for giving us an opportunity to be a part of this platform and to be able to dialogue and communicate with you all as professionals. We have the utmost respect, for those of you who are working in the profession and field of nursing, as well as in the profession and field of healthcare. We know that we are not going to be able to migrate through what we are experiencing right now associated with COVID-19 without you remaining dedicated and committed on the front line in this fight. So on this Thursday, August 19th, 2021, what a blessed, fortunate, and great day for us. Having endured what we've endured for the past 20 months or so, if you have any inkling or any thought in your mind or any doubt in your mind, or if you've pondered whether or not our Creator, God, knows who you are, whether or not he knows your name, your address, the number of hairs on your head, your date of birth, whether or not God truly cares about you and loves you, if you've had any doubt or any thought, if you've pondered that, I want to tell you that on this day, Thursday, August 19, 2021, the fact that you are still here is a definitive indicator that not only does God know who you are, but that he loves you, and that any and everything that is good in this world and in this universe is cheering and rooting for you. The skill sets, talents, and abilities that you have, the lives that you have impacted, that you are impacting, and that you will impact going forward in the future, the things that you were created to do, the things that you're gifted to do, you have not yet done all of those things. The task at hand for you have not yet been completed. So there is a reason, there is a purpose, there is a mission, and there is a why that you are still here. And you should feel enthused about that. You should feel motivated and inspired about that every good thing in the universe, that God, our Creator, loves you so much that you are still yet here and has entrusted within you the abilities and the things and all that is in you to have a positive impact on the lives of the people that you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. And so we are excited here tonight to be able to talk about grief. We're going to walk away from this discussion and conversation more inspired, more enthused, more energetic, and inspired to continue to go forward and to stay in the fight. So I want to be transparent before we get into grief. So like many of you, we've been having discussions about a number of things. And unfortunately, one discussion item that has become so polarizing is the discussion item of vaccination and masking. And so for me, one of the personal things that I've been struggling with and dealing with is the fact that my mom's not vaccinated. And, my mom is one of those individuals who fits into the category of persons, that have pre-existing conditions. And, I I've done as much reading as I possibly can, as much listening as I possibly can. And I've explained to her in layman's terms that you have a greater probability, a greater chance of avoiding serious illness, hospitalization, and death if you're vaccinated. And mother looks at me and she encouraged me to get vaccinated, and it was a no-brainer for me. It's a no-brainer for her and was a no-brainer for me, but I have not been able to convince her to get vaccinated yet. And so she told me, I trust in God and I'm dependent, on Jesus to carry me through. And I looked at her and I said, I love the Lord. And if loving the Lord is wrong, I don't want to be right. And if loving him is right, I don't want to be wrong. I said, I trust and believe in the same God that you reared me to trust and believe in. And I just feel that God gave us the capacity to develop these disciplines, that we professionalize in this world for a reason. And with that, we have this discipline of healthcare, and we have, through research and science and technology, advances in healthcare, but also in pharmacology. And with that capacity, we have had the ability to design and create vaccines for quite some time in this country and in this world. And the COVID-19 vaccine fits within that category. And I just believe that God will not give us that capacity for no reason at all to do the things that that we're doing, and to do the things that you all are doing in healthcare. And so as we have this discussion about grief, I wanted to say that because although I'm the director of the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, and those things that Teresa read about me in my resume, I've still yet been I've been unsuccessful and yet not successful in convincing my mom to get vaccinated. But I'm going to continue to have that conversation with her. So grief is a normal, natural, involuntary response that we experience as a result of a loss. And that can be as a result of a loss of a loved one. That could be as a result of a loss of a relationship, whether personal or professional, the loss of a pet, the loss of any number of things that we have divested ourselves of emotionally, and invested that emotional and mental energy into a relationship with something or someone over the course of time. And, one of the miscues I think that we make, when it comes to a loss and wanting to get over and go on from the pain is that we don't realize that we've divested ourselves of mental and emotional energy into a relationship over the course of time. And you can't just flip it on and off like a switch, because we're not wired that way. That's not how God created us. And in addition to that, one of the miscues is that we think that we should move on. And that's a mistake, because we shouldn't move on. We should move forward. And we should move forward by allowing ourselves to go through the normal, natural process of grieving. And so, grief manifests itself as a strong, overwhelming emotion, and it's very weighty. It makes us feel sometimes physically that we can't breathe. It makes us feel weak, causes us to lose our appetite. We don't want to do the things that we normally would do that would bring us joy, particularly if it's as a result of a loss of a loved one, and we did those things with that person. And so we experience, this overwhelming weight of emotion through feelings that manifest themselves as sorrow, as misery, sadness, anguish, pain, distress, agony, heartbreak, a brokenhearted thought process and mindset, despair, and regret. And probably one of the most weighty feelings emanating from grief is the feeling of being alone. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, but I have. You can literally be in a room full of people and yet still feel alone. Not only if you are going through the process of grieving, but you could be dealing with worry, stress, anxiety, and depression. And loneliness is also, one of the things that you experience when you're dealing with issues such as that. And the despair associated with it can at times make you feel helpless. But here's what I want you to know. So in Genesis, the first chapter, verse 27, it tells us that God created man in his own image, and created he them, both male and female. And in Genesis, the second chapter, verse 7, it tells us that God formed man from the dust of the earth and breathed the breath of life in him. And man, humankind, became a living spirit. And then we go to 1 John 4:4 in the New Testament, and it says this: greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Now, here is the amazing thing about who we are. God placed a part of himself in humankind in which he created when he breathed the first breath of life into that first man that he created, which was Adam. And so think about this. You have a part of God in you, and that greater that is in you than anything that we face in this world is that part of God that he placed inside of you. I like to view grief, anxiety, stress, depression, bipolar disorder, all mental health issues, physical health issues, and any struggle that we face in life as a Goliath. And just like David slew Goliath, as we're dealing with grief and all the other issues associated that are coming with the stressors surrounding COVID-19, we've got to remain focused and stay vigilant and slay the Goliath of grief. And so know that greater, that part of God that is in you is greater than anything that you may encounter in this world. So I want to talk about a few stages, actually 7 stages of grief. And if you've ever had a conversation with someone shortly after a loss, or at some point in time as it relates to a loss that they've experienced, probably, that first blow, when you initially find out or when you initially experience a loss, is that first stage, which is shock and denial. And in this particular stage, one of the things that we do, we allow the shock to potentially shield us from dealing with the pain associated with the loss. Now, this is an extremely important stage because it begins the grieving process for us. And know this, that we have to, and we should, and we must allow ourselves to go through the natural, normal process of grieving and not let anyone convince us simply that it's just okay and you can go on with your life, because it's not just okay. And yes, you can move forward, but we don't want to completely sever ourselves, because we want to allow ourselves to migrate through the natural, normal grieving process at our own pace. And that pace is individual. It's not based off of how you saw or what you've been told as it relates to how someone else dealt with a loss. And this initial stage of shock and denial can last for a couple of weeks. Sometimes experience a loss is so traumatic that we want to deny that specific event has even occurred, or that specific person or particular person is no longer with us. Some of the feelings that we experience in this particular stage is mourning, sadness, confusion, and discomfort. We are emotionally discomfort. We become physically discomforted because of the pain associated with that loss. And so that's the first stage in the grieving process, is shock and denial. The second stage that we experience is pain and guilt. And this is the stage where we question our own actions. We question what we said, what we did, what we didn't do, and what we didn't say. And if it's the loss of a loved one, we question what they said, what they didn't say, what they did, what they didn't do. If it's a relationship, again, it's what you did, what you didn't do, what they did, what they didn't do, what you said, what they didn't say, so forth and so on. If it is a work experience in any one of our professions, in law enforcement and in healthcare, we really question what we did and did not do, and what we could have done, what we would have done, what we should have done. And that causes us to feel a very weighty, overwhelming sense of grief as a result of the guilt associated with questioning our own actions. You know, and what we did, is it right? Was it right? Was it wrong? Could I have done it better? And so that's the second stage, pain and guilt. And some of the feelings that are associated with this second stage: sadness again, guilt, as we just spoke of. In this particular stage, we have to be extremely mindful, because we are more vulnerable to potentially becoming depressed as a result of the guilt and the questioning of our own actions in this particular stage of the grieving process than any other. And then we may have thoughts and feelings of betrayal. Did we betray that loved one? Did we betray that spouse, that family member, that patient, that client, that coworker, that colleague? Or did they betray us? And so this is the second stage of the grieving process: pain and guilt. The third stage is, after we migrate through shock and denial, pain and guilt, we begin to question what we did, what our loved one did, what we could have done and didn't do. And now we begin to feel anger. And I'm sure all of you, have heard stories, unfortunately, after someone has gone and passed on from this life, family members arguing over things that, normally in a different situation, there really wouldn't even be an in-depth discussion about it. Well, that's because when you move to the third stage in the grieving process, you begin to feel angry. You're literally on a short fuse, and it doesn't really take a whole lot to, quote unquote, set you off. And you at times are looking to be set off and to go off, because you feel like you need to release and exhale, and you need to blame someone, and you need to lay blame, and you need to point the finger. And this is a stage where we have to be extremely mindful, because we can begin to bargain with ourselves, bargain with the powers that be, bargain with the world. And we might say things like, I'll never drink again. I'll never smoke again, or I'll never say this or do that again. And I won't treat anybody this way or that way again. And we are more vulnerable at this third stage of anger and bargaining to potentially begin to self-medicate. And that will only exacerbate our situations. And the worst time for us to think about consuming anything, medication included, unless we're under a doctor's care, when we're going through the normal natural process of grieving, is in this third stage when we begin to feel anger. We're on a short fuse. We're looking for someone to blame. And then we start bargaining within ourselves, with others, with the world and the powers that be, what we will do going forward to prevent what we are experiencing from happening again. And one of the worst things that we could do is begin to try to self-medicate. And if we feel at this particular stage that we might need some medication, now is the time in the grieving process to seek out professional help from licensed, trained, educated, board certified professionals. And, that's the good thing about the capacity that we have as humans, as humankind. We have the capacity to create these disciplines. And we have these disciplines of psychiatry, psychology, therapy, and counseling. And now more than ever, we need to reach out to these professionals and make sure that we don't fall in a valley dealing with grief where we think that it is okay to self-medicate. Now more than ever is the time to know who these licensed, trained, board certified psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, and therapists are, and to have their number on speed dial, if not for yourself, for a loved one, family, friend, coworker, and or colleague. And so that is the third stage of the grieving process, which is anger and bargaining. And so the next stage, the fourth stage is depression. And some of the feelings, that we experience, obviously, at this stage is depression. That the weight of the heaviness associated with grief. Sometimes we feel like we're being crushed. We get frustrated. We become impatient, and we have to make sure that we're careful not to become impulsive and make life-altering decisions at the fourth stage in the grieving process. The fifth stage is an upward turn for us, where we begin to accept the reality of the situations of our circumstance, and our vision becomes a little bit more clear. We have more and a greater degree of clarity in thought, and we're getting to the point that now we're beginning to walk through and migrate through the normal, natural grieving process, and we're beginning to feel that, we can do this. We can make it through this. And the sixth stage is the reconstruction and working through stage at this point. And so we have a really good degree of mental clarity at this point. And, our visual perspective becomes more and more focused. We not only see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're moving towards that light at the end of the tunnel, and the reality of our situation becomes our reality. And then the seventh stage is when we finally accept the reality of our situation, and not only have we accepted it, but we are moving forward through the normal, natural process of grieving. We are not severing ourselves from our loved ones or completely from that situation. And in this particular stage, we can reminisce and we can think about that loved one, that past situation, without pain at this particular stage. And we are ready to continue to move forward, understanding that we're not moving on. So those are the seven stages of grief. And the most important thing to take away from that is that grief is a normal, natural, involuntary reaction that we experience as a result of loss. And working in your profession in healthcare, the unfortunate thing is that you might experience loss multiple times in a day, in a week, surely in a month, as it relates to the care that you're providing for your patients. But take this into consideration. The wins that you are having are greater than the number of losses that you're having as it relates to the care that you're providing for your patients. Your patients need you. Your family needs you. This state needs you. The world needs you. You need you. And it's okay for you to tell you thank you. It is okay for you to reflect on the positive achievements that you are having on a day-to-day basis. And I would submit to you that in this particular day and time, and I would recommend to you that that's a good thing to do, and you should do that, because you don't want to focus so much on the loss when we have more fortune with the wins, the lives that you're saving. And so I want to give you a few schools of thought, okay? The first one is this, and that is, don't move on, move forward as it relates to grief. Understand it is a normal, natural process, an involuntary action that we go through as a result of a loss. Think about sneezing and coughing. The body wants to disperse something because an airway is blocked. On the other side of that sneeze and that cough is relief. On the other side of allowing ourselves to go through the normal, natural grieving process is relief. On the other side of defeating that Goliath of grief is relief, strength for us. And the lessons that we take away from those situations put us in a much better place going forward to deal with what comes our way. Next, days should be viewed as good rather than bad, simply because with each day comes another opportunity. With each breath, with each second, with each minute, with each hour, with each day, with each week, with each month comes another opportunity for us to save another life, to have a positive impact on the people that we come in contact with every single day. So each day is an opportunity rather than simply just good or bad. View the losses as a lesson. Walk away valuing and cherishing the time that you had with that loved one, understanding that that relationship that you had was a fortune for you. It was a win and not a loss. Even though that person is no longer with us, you can carry that person forward with you through the memories. And memories, do this with memories. Fill the void of that person no longer being here with the memories that you have with them. And allow those memories to become your mission. And that mission can be a seminar, it can be a book, it can be a pamphlet, it can be a PowerPoint presentation, it can be a counseling session, it could be you just dialoguing and communicating with someone who is experiencing grief as a result of a loss. Next, meditate and celebrate. Meditate on your achievements, meditate on your accomplishments, particularly those that you had the opportunity to enjoy with your lost loved ones. And then this last school of thought I want to give you is this: allow the process of going through the natural, normal course of grieving to refine you and not define you. Allow the process to refine you. And on the other side of it, you become a stronger, a better person with a mission going forward. And take the time to smell the roses. Reflect back and understand how fortunate you are to have had a relationship with that lost loved one. Understand how fortunate you are to have been in a position to at least attempt to give that person a surviving chance. And understand that there are elements, in this universe, in this society, that are out of your control. And one of those things is we cannot dictate and control the actions of other people. The only thing that we can do is dictate and control our own. And so when they come to us by whatever thoroughfare, whether it's, having lived a risky, reckless lifestyle, making a decision not to get vaccinated or mask up, making a decision to put themselves in harm's way, you are still yet in a position to give them a fighting, surviving chance. Encourage yourself. Take the time to encourage yourself. That is vitally important. In addition to that, It's called self-esteem. Take the time to esteem yourself as well. In addition to that, you should have a high degree of self-confidence and self-assurance. You are here for a purpose, for a reason. You have a why. The gifts, skill sets, and talents and abilities that you have, God gave them to you for a reason. And continue to allow him to position you to use them to have a positive impact on the lives of the people that you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. And the last thing I want to say is you should be self-reliant. And in doing that, you got to take care of yourself. You've got to engage in a thought process and a concept of holistic health, mental, physical, and spiritual. Because how can you help a loved one, family member, friend, colleague, coworker, patient, client? How can you be in the best position to help them if you're not taking care of yourself? And so that's our brief discussion about grief. And I want you to know once again that you are here on this day, Thursday, August 19th, 2021, for a reason, with a purpose. You have a why. You are a winner. You are successful. You will continue to be successful. You have had, you are having a significant impact on the lives of the people that you come in contact with, and you will continue to do that. And so now I want to give you all a few minutes, if you have any questions, to pose some questions.
Thank you so much, Carl Maxwell. I'm going to ask everyone, if you don't mind, really quickly, if you have some questions, post them in the chat. I do have some that are coming through on my cell phone, so I'm going to go ahead and ask those. If you do have a question, please put it in the chat quickly, because we are coming up to the end of our time frame. But we have a question from someone. First of all, they said, thank you so much for sharing all of this information. Do you have a suggestion on the best way to approach a colleague that has lost a family member? I want to help them, but I don't want to seem intrusive. Do you have any suggestions on a way to do that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. The best way to approach anyone, based on my own personal experience, experiencing loss and dealing with family members and friends, colleagues, and coworkers that have experienced loss, is to give them the opportunity to talk about their feelings, to talk about their emotions, to talk about that loved one. That's probably the best way for them to release what they're feeling, the energy that is building up, as they migrate through, this grieving process. Being there for them, being a listening ear, and giving them an opportunity to talk about how they are feeling and what they are feeling.
Thank you so much. Another person said, thank you so much for sharing information on this. I have not only lost many patients, but I have lost 2 family members during the COVID pandemic. It has been incredibly hard for me as a nurse to go to work every day, put my feelings aside, and take care of my patients, then get in my car, and the emotions of losing family members sweeps over me. Thank you so much for expressing that it is okay for me to not feel okay.
Yes,
I just wanted to read that because I think that resonates with so many first responders and nurses during this time.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we have time for one more question. Give me 1 second. I'm scrolling through my phone. Do you have any suggestions in talking to children who have lost a loved one during the pandemic and who are also struggling with, I think that says, coping with that loss?
Well, I think that is a great question, because what we're fighting for is we're fighting for our future, and our future rests and lies within the thought process, mindset, heart, spirit, and soul of our children. And that is one of the things that I think that is vitally important, is that we talk to our kids about what they're feeling. We talk to them about how they are interpreting what they are seeing. And we give them an opportunity to share with us what they're thinking. And once we have an innuendo into their thought process, we are much better suited at that point to talk to them about how that relationship that they had with their mom, their dad, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, cousin, sibling, so forth and so on, can be fuel, can be motivation and inspiration, can be guidance for them going forward to carry on that loved one's legacy. And talk about, some of the discussions that they had with that lost loved one, and let them share from their perspective how they feel about that relationship.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Colonel Maxwell, for sharing this information tonight. It's a topic that's very tough. It's a topic that I think we all, though, need to be discussing more and being open about, so that everyone does feel more comfortable in discussing it and sharing their feelings. I have numerous individuals in the chat as well as on my phone saying, thank you so much. I want to relay those to you. And I also want to say to everyone that attended this evening, thank you for everything that you do throughout the day. I know you put aside so many things, and you're not with your family in many cases when you would like to be, because you're out there working, you're taking care of Mississippians. We thank you so much for that. If there is another topic, if you would like a second part to this topic, please let us know. We'll do our very best to include that on an upcoming webinar. But thank you so much for everything you do. And most importantly, we hope that every single one of you on today will stay safe, and you will be in a position, a safe position, healthy position, to be able to join us next week. Thank y'all all so much, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you.